Oh, good God. Hello, Siri. All right. So then we're going to get started with our warm-up game. I will be splitting people out into groups for this. Veronica, I will do my best to get you and Cam together. So the game we're going to play is just called 1, 2, 3 counting. And it is very simple. You're going to be in groups of 2, potentially 3. You're always counting to one more number than the people in your group. So in a group of 2, it goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Every 2 cycles, you will replace one of those numbers with a sound and a gesture, which will carry on throughout the game. And so as it goes, you're going to have to remember those new things. And if you want to just level it up, you can keep the cycle going and keep replacing stuff. But I'm going to have Dave unmute himself and jump up here with me so we can demo it really quick. Let me grab this here. Dave and Duncan. All right. So if everybody can see us up here.
Whoa, nice.
Yeah. This is also how we're going to be playing the game later. All right. So ready, Dave?
Yeah.
All right. 1,
2,
3,
1,
2.
3,
McClunky.
2,
3,
McClunky.
2.
3,
McClunky.
Mosh Mosh.
3.
McClunky.
Moshi Mosh.
3,
McClunky.
Mosh Mosh.
Woo!
McClunky.
Moshi Mosh.
Woo!
Okay, that's going to be how it goes. I'm just going to send you guys off into groups of 2 or 3. It's just get the creativity flowing. Get into that kind of mindset. If you're going to be silly, you're going to look dumb. But let me end the immersive mode here.
No.
And I will send you guys into breakout rooms. It's like 3, 2, 1. All right, and we've got everyone back. All right. I hope that went all right. But let's jump in to kind of what this is all about really quick. So start that. All right. So some of the basic rules of improv. Just to touch on the name. So we've got agree, yes, and make statements, and there are no mistakes. These are just the 4 things that typically you want to keep in mind while you are performing and when you are thinking about going through an improv scene. And we can talk later about how these are applicable outside of that context. For agree, it is important to understand that you should be saying yes to what your scene partners are offering you. You should not be kind of shooting down ideas, even if you think that maybe they aren't the best or that maybe yours is better. You should still be accepting what is being given to you. If you ignore somebody's suggestion, it tends to grind the scene to a halt. And if you and your partner are both trying to kind of push the scene in different directions, you end up with a kind of net zero where nothing is happening. And for the audience, it becomes very uninteresting, very boring to watch, and they can kind of lose track of who they should be listening to and who they should be following. Sometimes an idea that you don't even agree with ends up being the best thing for the scene. It is much better to give an idea a chance and then to drop it later than it is to just flat out refuse an idea because you don't think that it's quote unquote good enough. Building on agreeing, we have yes and. Oftentimes, it is not enough to just say yes to what your partner is saying, not enough to just go along with the ideas that they are putting forward. You need to be contributing to the scene, to what is happening. So you need to agree to what is being given to you and then expand upon it. If it's an idea that is working well, try to add new information, try to find a new avenue that you can explore and grow the scene with. If it's something that's not working, if it's a character choice that the audience is responding poorly to or anything like that, you can accept the idea and then deflect it and give a reason for maybe a character to leave, for a choice to be shifted a little bit without flatly refusing. it's much better to work on these avenues of kind of deflection and redirection than it is to just stonewall an idea. Again, just to keep momentum moving, as well as to not discredit your scene partners in the eyes of the audience. Yeah, so you should always be striving to contribute something, and it is all about just taking the ideas that your partners give to you and adding to them. You're not there to be a hype man for the scene. You are there to be an active participant. So you should always be striving to add something and expand rather than just be present. Building off of yes and in the same way that yes and built off of agreeing, when you are adding to a scene, you need to actually be adding something of like tangible significance. It's not enough to like to be like reactionary and be questioning all the time. So let's see, so it's not enough to respond to a new idea by constantly asking a question of it. And by questions, I don't literally mean a question. This applies to any situation where your contribution requires more input out of your scene partners than it adds on its own. If my partner says that they just got back from the moon, it is going to be much more productive of me to ask them, oh, did you put the parking brake on the rocket? Or did you get space sick again? Than it would be for me to just ask, how'd the trip go? By asking about the parking brake or if you got sick, I am adding something to this scene. I'm establishing that either A, they have forgotten to park the rocket before, or B, they're really bad with space travel, whereas just asking them how the trip went, while technically I am taking their suggestion and adding something to the scene, I am putting all of the impetus on them to carry the motion forward. And what you end up becoming is just this kind of sounding board for your partner, and there's not a dialogue. It becomes one-sided. Sometimes asking questions is fine, but typically you want to avoid it in the early stages where you want to be establishing kind of what is happening. And just keeping to the general game plan of making concrete statements ensures that you are being an active participant, and generally it's going to make for a much more engaging scene. Lastly, there are no mistakes. The biggest point of improv is it is just about having fun. If you're not enjoying yourself, what's the point? There is no way to get improv wrong. Some ideas, yeah, they're going to be better than others, but you don't ever know where a scene is going to end up. And if you just use your best judgment and you stay open to things that you might not have been expecting, it can go in a lot of fun directions. It can be easy also to look for somebody to blame when things go poorly. But when that happens, you need to remember that you are part of a scene and you are part of a group. And so blame is never going to be something productive. What is productive is identifying what ideas kind of failed or didn't resonate with the audience, so it can be discussed afterward with your other scene partners, and everybody can learn from it and adjust to it and carry that knowledge going forward. So we're going to play a game, and this one is going to be with everybody here in the chat room, and it's called Expert Panel. So before this started, I randomly assigned people into groups, and I will be bringing them up to the front with me, kind of like I did with Dave earlier. And what this is, I am going to be kind of your show host, and the people that I bring up are experts on some given topic. I will be asking you questions about the topic, and in order on the screen, moving away from me, you guys will take turns giving one-sentence answers to what I have asked. The first person will answer me. The second person will build on what they have said, and so on down the line. Once we have completed that, I'll ask another question. We'll go through maybe 2 or 3 questions per group and then get the next one up. This game is all about just going with your gut and not thinking too hard about it and trying to build off of what the other people are saying and just using that idea of adding something to the discussion and just agreeing and taking the ideas that are given to you. So I am going to get us out of the screen share here. The first group that was mixed up here is Dom, Levon, Emily Roski, and Jamie. So I'm going to put us into this little view here. One sec. So Duncan, to get the right names in here. Okay. So we got Dom, Levon, Emily, Jamie. There we go. And go. All right, so if you guys could unmute yourselves. Oh, that put us in a weird order. All right, so when I do this, we will just go from left to right. We'll start with Emily.
Great.
Yep, and we'll go down the line, Emily, Dom, Levon, Jamie. So what I want to do now, for all of you that are not actively on stage right now, start typing in chat, what do you think these people should be experts on?
Oh, God.
Oh, okay. I already see some good ones. We're going with melon research. I just like that.
Wait, so question: Are we each expert on a separate thing, or are we all
No,
experts on the same?
you are all experts on melon research.
Perfect.
Dave?
So I will be asking you some questions about melons. Emily, you will be giving me just a 1-sentence response to what I'm saying. Dom will build off that, then Levon, then Jamie, and then I'll ask another question. Okay?
Question. Wait,
Yes.
because I'm first, am I just making a statement and then Dom will build
Yes.
off of my 1-sentence statement?
Exactly.
Got
Yes.
it.
All right. So it's lovely to have you all here. I was incredibly impressed to see that you managed to cultivate pyramidal watermelons. Could you tell me a little bit about how you managed that?
Yes, after 10 years of extensive research, we finally were able to create them.
In fact, that research involved gathering soil from underneath the tundra of Antarctica.
Gathering that soil was no easy task, as there were too many penguins and polar bears distracting us.
We managed to send out some of our researchers to quell the disagreements between those penguins and polar bears, though, so it all worked out in the end.
Now that sounds interesting, but why Antarctic soil? What is it about that is so good for these watermelons?
Well, it's, of course, the penguin excrement that really creates a fertile soil.
Okay.
And in fact, once that excrement seeps into the soil, there's, it's all fancy science talk, so I don't want to bore you guys, but it's something about the reaction that causes it to the melons to just, spring up.
Of course, that reaction's a little dangerous. It's very thermal, so it's very hot in the area where it is, and it just melts all the snow.
Which did make it very easy to find, so that took some of the burden off of us.
Oh, well, that's lovely. Thank you very much. I am going to bring on our next panel here. While I do so, if people could think of some topics, our next group is going to be Cameron, Dave, Rachel, and Veronica.
Good luck.
Oh, my heart is beating.
You did. Everybody did very well. Okay, let's get these names in here. All right, we got Cameron, Dave,
They're still experts.
Rachel, Veronica. All right, welcome to our new lovely panel here. All right, it looks like one of our experts is on a break. That's all right.
I got two phones.
Okay. So we will go same thing. We'll go left to right, starting with Rachel, Cam, Dave, Veronica. What do we got here? We got race cars, motorcycles, horse blindness. Okay. We're going with horse blindness.
Horse blindness.
Yeah. So I think the obvious question on everybody's mind is, how did these horses go blind?
So after our research, we discovered that horses go blind because they just stare too much.
Yeah, so building off of that, I don't know why she was laughing so much. It's a real problem we have here. We realized that horses struggle with staring at the sun too much, to be specific. You know, the sun's a very dangerous thing and they're staring at it too much. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sir, I can't quite hear
You're
you.
not unmuted.
I still can't hear you, sir. Interesting. So our next expert.
This issue. Move the horses
Move the horses.
to
Move the horses.
dark areas at cave systems. We're using caves.
Okay.
Yeah, and so finding these caves were a bit difficult for us, as you can imagine, but we also had to come up with these very elaborate trailers to transport the horses to these caves safely.
I see. Now, once the horses go blind, is there any way to fix the issue?
No. Horses are permanently blind once they go blind, just like how humans can be. But we are working on some contacts that they can wear to improve their eyesight.
yeah, and with those contacts, we found that it actually helps the horses. So actually building on that, when they go blind, their other senses get heightened and their other abilities get heightened, almost as if they're like superhero horses. It's kind of amazing. And what these contact lenses do, if you've ever seen the movie Daredevil, it kind of does a little vibration technique so they can see where things are, but they don't necessarily know what the things are.
Got it. Okay.
So we've been looking into, with these horses, with these heightened senses, we've been looking into combat scenarios and really putting this to use on a governmental, global, combative scale.
Yeah, which can then, it invites us to all of these different diplomatic opportunities as well. So we want to try and see if we can maybe get the UN involved as well and help create this special branch for these blind horses so that they can have some work even after their disability, which we want to try and turn into ability for these horses.
That is lovely. I wish you guys all of the best with that. We will be moving on to our next panel here of Alexandra, Matthew, Emily Pham, and Mark. So I will be asking you to join me on the stage here. And I see we've already got some topics coming in. Let's see here. Horse, ghost, right? Goat. You know what? Undercooked rice. What are the real dangers of undercooked rice?
There's a real issue with indigestion going around. Yeah.
So they are dangerous, but we're trying to look at the positives here, right? Like it has a nice crunch to it. So we're trying to see if we can make it some sort of outer coating for different food items.
Yeah, we're thinking about, well, the research showing that deep frying rice and making it extra crunchy can actually be good for the digestive system. So this is something we're looking into, deep frying rice.
Oh, nice.
And we discovered that because it is so crunchy, it became much less calorie dense. So it contributes to a keto diet, for example, with a much less caloric intake.
I see. Now, how do you plan on getting people to make the switch from regular, boring rice to your new deep fried keto rice?
Well, they're by introducing home ingredients everyone has in their kitchen, like salt. You can salt fry your rice. It's very cheap option.
Everybody has rice, right? It's just the method of making it. So we're just going to try and put on public television, pamphlets, things you get in your mail, all the stuff you throw away immediately. Don't throw it away because it has this important information about crunchy keto rice.
Yes, absolutely. And we're also considering to, well, kind of making a rice-based cereal. So we also recommend using milk with it.
Milk?
Yes, milk and rice. It's kind of a new thing going on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to gain traction for the popularity of this new rice cereal, we will begin implementing it in Kyushoku for the school lunches.
That sounds like a wonderful idea. All right, thank you all very much. Next, we are going to have May, Bridget, Gabby, and Anna. All right, what do we got here? What are they experts in? Oh, no, they are not experts in Duncan.
I'm so scared of these options.
You know what? Let's go with, I'm torn. I'll let you guys pick. Do you want hamster wheels or flat tires?
Hamster?
Hamster wheels.
All right. Hamster wheels it is. Cameron, wheels does not help. Both of them are wheels. Okay. So, hamster wheels. Are we talking normal hamsters or are we talking like big hamsters? What is the ideal size hamster to power this new source of electricity? Oh, Gabby, we can't hear you.
Hi, sorry about that. So it's a very good question. So that's wholly contingent upon the needs of either a small town or a larger country. So the species and type of hamster used will be contingent upon applications and also the environmental circumstances of a desired increase.
Of course.
Yes, in fact, we think that it will be best to have the size of a Ferris wheel to be the next big thing for Tokyo to power their streets.
Okay.
Yep. And in addition to that, we're sort of branching out as well to make hamster wheels for humans as more of an exercise-based thing. So we're thinking of promoting it on TikTok with teens using hamster wheels to stay active.
Okay.
And you wouldn't believe the amount of interesting dances that some of these teens have already started creating on these hamster wheels. Lots of crab walks, lots of sideways dancing. It's great.
Can I get an example of one of these dances?
Duncan, are you asking me or the next person?
The experts. Can I get an example of what this dance is?
May's doing it.
Lovely. All right. Then I guess my other just quick question would be, if you're making the switch from human to hamster, is there any sort of possibility that you might just forego the hamster entirely and have the humans powering everything?
That's not something we're looking into at this time because we're searching for more ethical means of energy production. And even though it is a problem of the unemployment rates in selective countries, hamster seems to be a more ethical decision and also they're easier to and more economical to maintain.
I see.
Yes, and going off of that, we think that it would be fantastic to have waivers where people will sign over their rights of exercise at least one time a week where they will help their community.
Got it.
Yes, and in addition to that, we wanted to set up a thing with hamsters and people, side by side powering the wheels. So you have a human-sized one and then a smaller one for your friend who is a hamster or your pet hamster, or maybe even a mid-sized one for more of a capybara, because those are also very popular nowadays. So it'd really take off on TikTok as well.
That's a good point.
And I think in general, all of these wonderful ideas to involve TikTok, to involve social media, and just in general to create a whole new way of life of human, hamster, and capybara, since that seems to be the way that global events are trending anyway.
That is a world of harmony that I cannot wait to see. All right, thank you very much. Next, we're going to have Tyler, Megan, Julia, and Jordan. All right, let's see what we got here. What should these people be experts in? Okay. Let's do origami. All right. So I have always wondered, what is the ideal thickness for a good origami sheet? Oh, can you unmute yourself?
There we go. You see, that's the real debate right now. Currently, our research has been with the different size and thickness of the origami, but really, I think what we've discovered that it's about what you're doing with the origami, because this isn't just about elementary school kids doing it, right? There's a bigger meaning here that we're trying to look into and develop.
Right.
Yeah, building off of that, the bigger meaning we're trying to find is a means of creating world peace through origami.
Look, I mean, this is not Robotchan's origami anymore. It's transcended borders, and just like Lego has been building these fantastic pieces, I think soon we're going to be seeing Origami World and origami sets being popularized in origami video games, and I think it's a great way to get all generations. You know, Lego, again, not to harp on it, but you know, it's up to 99, and I think Lego can origami, excuse me, can go up to 150. So I think it's very accessible.
Yes, actually, our most recent partnership is with NASA. We believe that within the folds of the origami, one can figure out the secrets of the universe.
Ooh, do you have any such secrets that you could share with us today? Maybe as a little sneak peek.
Well, you see, we work with NASA, so there's only so much we can disclose, of course. But I will say that our research has maybe given us the idea of possible realities that in these pocket dimensions that we find within these folds.
Yeah, and actually in one of these other dimensions, we've discovered that horses are unable to vomit.
Yeah, there's a lot of really interesting other worlds out there. I think one of my particular favorites is the one where the Bee Gees soundtrack to Saturday Night Fever, you know, classic, created actually, you know, helped towards the goal of world peace. You know, you never thought that these songs about dancing in the disco club could do so much, but I kind of want to move to that pocket universe.
I like to believe that that's true in our universe too.
I think we all do.
But yes, these pocket dimensions within the folds of the origami are so important to our research, and I'm so excited to share our findings with the world.
I cannot wait to hear it. Okay, our last group is going to be Samantha, Elaine, and Naomi. If I can finish typing names. There we go. Oh, Naomi, you're up first. Cool. Tiny home interior design. What was that, Naomi?
Is that the topic?
Yeah, we're going to go with tiny home interior design.
See, I was just asking you because, of course, I knew that because I am an expert in that.
I know, and that's why we have you on, and I'm so grateful that you took the time out of your busy schedule. I know just how much in demand your skills are, all three of you, really. And I just wanted to know, so as a potential owner of a future tiny home, what should I be looking for in terms of, like, you know, little kitchen appliances?
Well, there are many various tiny kitchen appliances that you are going to need. That depends on what you're trying to use these appliances for. Are you trying to cook with them? Because you can use these kitchen appliances for many different things, but my favorite is the tiny whisk. You can use it as like a toilet roll holder. It's my favorite thing, you know.
I also agree. The tiny whisks, I'm a baker, and so living in a tiny home, I think that you have to devote your life to tiny living in general. So as a baker, I've really invested my time into baking miniature cakes and cookies for all the little ants that happen to walk out around outside of my home, and kind of do more for the insect community through that.
Okay.
I agree with the other experts, although I have to say that it also depends on how clumsy of a person you are, how big your hands are. I personally have sausage phalanges, so I cannot handle the tiny whisk very well, but there are other appliances that we're working on to develop in order to make tiny living just a little easier.
Okay, now on the idea of making tiny living easier, what sort of inroads have you made for enabling tiny living for those who are not tiny bodied?
I mean, truly, it's about mindset. You have to commit to the tiny lifestyle. And, you know, actually, I wrote a book on this topic. It's called 1, 2, 3 Living Tiny, you know? Yes. So
I heard of that
if you go
one.
to,
I haven't gotten around to it yet.
It's I would say that it's like #1 in tiny house living on Amazon. You know, that's just a little flex, just a little, you know. So first step, commit to the tiny lifestyle. Do everything tiny, you know, and I'll let my colleagues finish my thoughts, you know, because they know.
Of course.
You know, also, since we're so invested in this tiny home living and really encouraging people to take this up, even the ones who maybe have taller, longer legs and weren't really built for this, but they're really invested. We're also helping them out with surgeries where they can get their legs shortened so that they can actually enjoy this tiny home living a little more.
Nice.
The surgical options are a bit extreme, but if you're really committed to the tiny life, I would recommend going through with that. I just want to plug Naomi's book again, 1, 2, 3 Tiny Living. What was it? Living Tiny.
She knows. She's trying to make a joke. She's trying to make a funny. 1, 2, 3 Living Tiny. It's a rhyme, you know.
Sorry, excuse me.
Thank you so much, all three of you. Really, I cannot wait to start my own tiny living journey. And I only hope one day I can really bring my life into as tiny a mold as you have provided us. So thank you very much. All right. So thank you everybody for playing along there. Everybody had some really good ideas there. I think you did a good job with just pushing things forward. Nobody ever just kind of had dead air that they forced somebody else to fill. So I think that was very nice to see. All right, let's go back to this here. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about, there we go, if my screen would work. So the cycle of improv in both short form and long form exercises, there is a kind of feedback loop that you tend to get into that helps with just the flow of the scene. So we start with propose on the outside to get started, and then you get into a loop of making an action, evaluating its impact, adjusting based on what you've seen, and then going back to acting on that adjustment, and so on and so forth. So right here, despite what it may seem like at times, when you're doing improv, you need to be practicing a lot. It's not just about making things up on the fly. It takes a lot of teamwork. It takes storytelling. It takes a level of trust in your ability to just jump into a situation and adapt to it. The improv cycle is a very useful tool just to have in your back pocket, as it makes sure that you are always doing something to add to a scene. It's much more important that a scene is moving forward than it is to kind of like come up with the best idea. The more you perform, the more comfortable you're going to be with voicing your own ideas, even if you're not the most confident in their kind of applicability. And as scary as performing can seem, it's easy to drown out the nerves when you have something else to focus on. Even if it does nothing else for you, focusing on this idea of the feedback cycle gives you a distraction to take yourself away from whatever it is that is maybe making you nervous about the situation that you're in. As far as using the cycle, as I've mentioned before, the most important thing is just getting an idea out into the scene. You don't want to leave a bunch of dead time. So typically your goal is to have a scene up and running in 15 seconds or less from the time that the prompt is given to you. The longer that you take to plan a scene, the more likely that you are going to get attached to a specific idea, and you're going to push back against anything that doesn't really fit into it. You're not just looking for laughs. How is the audience responding? Are they liking the characters? How are they responding to the different story beats? Check your partner's reactions as well. If you or they aren't enjoying what you are doing, the audience isn't going to either. You are the first person that you need to make believe in the scene. That's the wrong computer. There we go. All right, general tips. In the audience's eyes, the scene is either going to be good or bad as a whole. So any help you can give to your scene partner is going to reflect well on you as well. Trying to upstage your partner or to kind of inflate your own role in the scene generally has the opposite effect, where it throws a wrench into cohesion and it leaves the audience confused as to which narrative they are supposed to be following and who they're supposed to be paying attention to. And expanding on the idea that you don't have to be funny, oftentimes the harder that you are trying to be funny or to inject humor, the less funny and the more awkward the scene generally becomes. Humor in improv is usually arising naturally from the juxtaposition of everyday people, the characters you're creating, with just the wacky situations that you are forced to put them in. Common practice activity is to run scenes where you are explicitly given the instruction, do not talk about anything funny, and do not talk about anything outside of just normal everyday activities. And you try your hardest to keep your partners from laughing as long as you can. And as soon as somebody laughs, you're out and the next person steps in. Usually we run this with new people to just show how easy it is to create humor, even out of just the dumbest, most mundane situations. And also staying consistent is very important to keeping the audience invested. It doesn't matter if, like, Dave tells me that everything he touches turns into cotton candy. As long as we are reacting to that appropriately and staying consistent with it throughout the scene, the audience should believe what's going on. I did have another game that we were going to play. However, we only have about 15-ish minutes until the end of the thing. So I'm unfortunately going to have to skip it. I will talk about the game. We'll skip performing it, but I'll talk about it. And it is something that you can do with higher level kids, like an English club or a high school classroom. So the idea of the game New Choice is you give the people a scene, just an idea. All but one of them then act on that prompt. And one person is standing back as an observer. At any point, they can say the words new choice, and whoever just spoke has to retcon what was just said and pick something new to fill that space. There's no limit to however many times the observer can say new choice or when they can jump in. After a minute or two, you rotate positions so everybody gets a chance. As an example, I have a clip from Whose Line Is It Anyway, just to show the general idea of what this is.
Morning, Gary.
Hi, Phil. Listen, sorry, but I've been sent here to slay you.
What? New choice.
I'm sorry, but I've been sent here to make sure you have morning exercises.
New choice.
I'm just sorry you only have one eye.
Doesn't bother me anymore.
Well, your test came back. You're nearsighted.
What? Nearsighted? I've got a big village pillaging this afternoon. New choice. I'm going to see if Tron. New choice. I'm planning on entering a poker championship last week. New choice. I'm in love with a beautiful man. New choice. New choice. Come, I'll show you a secret. I have another eye. I just never put it in.
Why?
Well, I wouldn't be much of a cyclops with two eyes, would I?
I guess not. You'd be
I'd be tall, goofy guy.
A diclops, I guess.
A diclops.
So that is an example of the idea of the game of New Choice, which I wanted to play, but we're not going to have time. So moving on from that, let's jump back here. So applying improv outside the classroom. Let's jump here. So just like in improv, many situations that you encounter won't have a plan for you to follow, and you don't need to try to make an entire plan on the fly. It's not a reasonable expectation to try to come up with a well put together course of action without any advance notice. Like, did your internet stop working for your presentation? Did your lesson come up short? Are you at your Bonenkai and you've been seated next to your Kyoikucho who wants to arm wrestle you? Like, just take a breath and do something small and just move the situation forward, see how it works, and adjust from there. Anything is going to be a lot easier when you just break it down into those little pieces and you try to take things as they come instead of trying to take care of a situation as one big whole. The idea of making statements is equally applicable outside of improv. If you're feeling overwhelmed or intimidated or whatever else, as long as what you are doing makes some amount of net positive motion, you're going to be in pretty good shape. As well, the improv cycle is just as applicable over a long period of time as it is to the short time of an improv scene. For example, like we talked about with Azad earlier with the games and activities, look at what aspects are getting positive and negative reactions out of classes. Look at the different needs of those classes. Is one class extremely Genki and can't sit still? Maybe the card collecting game that you came up with that your shy Sanense class didn't like would be perfect for them. Always just be tinkering, find little changes you can make. No idea is ever so good that it can't be improved. Don't try to be funny, just be natural is generally applicable. The harder you try to force something, typically the worse it's going to go. Just approaching something naturally and without too much force behind it will usually be met with less resistance. And of course, all of these things are for situations where you find yourself without time to prepare, things like that. If you have the time to prepare, then it's a different story. As far as in the classroom, our warm-up game, 1, 2, 3 counting, can be good at elementary school level for vocabulary acquisition. Having the kids start for like counting examples, starting with each Nissan, and then slowly switching into English equivalents, things like that. Expert panel is decent for kind of intermediate learners because they're only required to say one sentence at a time, but they're still having to listen and understand what is being kind of talked about. New choice would be a game for more advanced students where they are given the freedom to be creative. And if the other students are picking their topics, they will be talking about things that they are familiar with. And it's a little just more fun, a little more relaxed in an environment where typically things are a lot more structured. I am going to ask people, though, to jump out into breakout rooms for about 5 minutes and talk about different ways you think that this can be applied to working as a jet, just your general life outside of the workplace. And then we'll have people come back and we'll talk about kind of what was discussed, and then it will be time to head out. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen here and I will send out those breakout rooms really quick. All right, that looks like everybody. So if we have any volunteers who would like to share what was talked about in the group, please just put your hand up and then we will get going. All right, Cameron.
Yeah, so a big thing that we talked about that we thought was important is like, I'm sure as many of you get, your JTE will often ask you like, what did you do this weekend? Or even in just small talk activities for the students, they'll be like, I like baseball. Do you like baseball? And like the conversation kind of just dies. So I think an emphasis on the improv of like, things don't have to be factual 100% of the time. Like if your JTE asks you, what did you do this weekend? You'd be like, oh, I went to the moon. Because like, you're wanting to test the students listening, I guess. So having that improv of like, not taking yourself too seriously, but like, I don't know, being able to come up with situations is very useful. Like everything doesn't have to be factual in the classroom in that aspect, I feel like. So improv can help with that.
Got anyone else? All right, Jamie. Oh, sorry, Alexandra, then Jamie. I didn't see the hand. It was weird on the background.
No worries. I think one of the things that we talked about was sort of, a lot of us have problems with open-ended questions where if you make it too broad, then nobody knows how to answer, right? Especially when a lot of these kids are too afraid of making mistakes. So using sort of like scene building to focus in on what they can talk about, I think helps a lot, if that makes sense, right? Like, I don't know if that makes sense.
No, absolutely.
Making a focus, making a scene, and then narrowing it down from there so that they have a path to follow, but choices they can still make.
I like that. Yep. All right, Jamie.
Okay, building off of what both Alexandra, Alexandra, I don't know what she goes by.
Yeah, what would you prefer?
Yeah, what she said and what Cameron said. One thing is that in other teachers' workshops, I have been told that you want to have the students be as truthful as possible, because that it gives them some applicability to their own lives and helps it lock things into memory. But in my experience, whenever I've tried to implement that, especially if the questions are too open-ended, like what is your hobby? The students freeze because a lot of the time they haven't thought about it, so they don't know what the right answer is, and then they wind up thinking about the about just like they wind up panicking and worrying that they don't know the answer factually instead of focusing on the grammar, which is what the actual target of the lesson is. So like Cameron said, it is very useful to have to sort of like free that up. And another thing, linking it again to what Lexa said, I see that, is another thing that we talked about is giving them a prompt. Like I really like that expert panel game because instead of just asking us students a question point blank, you are providing them with an opportunity to sort of role play. Like if you tell them, oh, you are a scientist, how would a scientist respond? That helps get them out of their head so that they can just start talking without the pressure of like bearing themselves, you know. It hopefully it'll make them less shy.
Yeah, and I like what you said about the issue with like kids freezing up. At least in my experience, I have found that a lot of the times what that comes from is they, like my students, they feel that once they give me the answer, they are locked into that. Like if I ask you, hey, what's your favorite food? Because we're working on the word favorite, they feel like if they tell me their favorite food is pizza, then by God, every person for the rest of their life who asks them what their favorite food is, that answer better be pizza. And just imparting that idea that this is very low stakes. This is just an exercise, like enjoy it, have fun, and you can say whatever you want. And as long as you are approaching it correctly and you are meeting like the goals that you're trying to hit, then you're fine. All right. If we don't have anybody else, it is 12:25 and we will call it here, and I will see you all back in the main room. So thank you for coming.
Thank you, Duncan. Great job, man.
This is great. Yeah, thank you.
This is really fun.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
That was fun.
Big arigato. All right.
Yeah.
How do I stop recording?